Speaking section. The speaking section tests your ability to communicate in English in an academic setting. During the test, you will be presented with 4 speaking questions. The questions ask for a response to a single question, a talk, or a lecture. The prompts and questions are presented on time. You may take notes as you listen, but notes are not graded. You may use your notes to answer the questions. Some of the questions ask for a response to a reading passage and a talk or a lecture. The reading passages and the questions are written, but the directions will be spoken. Your speaking will be evaluated on both the fluency of the language and the accuracy of the content. You will have 15 to 20 seconds to prepare and 45 to 60 seconds to respond to each question. Typically, a good response will require all of the response time and the answer will be complete by the end of the response time. You will have about 17 minutes to complete the speaking section. A clock on the screen will show you how much time you have to prepare each of your answers and how much time you have to record each response.
You will now be asked a question about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to plan your response and 45 seconds to speak.
Some people spend extra money on things they enjoy, while others save it. What do you like to do with extra money, and why?
You will now read a short passage and then listen to a conversation on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about the passages. After you hear the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. You have 45 seconds to read the passage below.
Listen to 2 students discussing this article. So, what do you think about the new library policy they're implementing?
Well, I can see what they're trying to do, but I'm not sure it's going to work out the way they expect.
Really? What makes you say that?
For one thing, have you noticed the new lighting they've installed in the reference room? It's just not bright enough in my opinion.
Oh, I see what you mean. And what about the reading lamps in the study areas?
Exactly. Nobody really uses those now, but if the overhead lights are dimmer, people are going to start turning them all on. So any energy savings they were hoping for might just go out the window.
Good point. What about the changes to the air conditioning?
Well, that's another issue. Yes, it might save some energy, but the library is going to be a lot less comfortable on hot days. Right now, it's a great place to study because it's nice and cool and quiet. But if it's too hot, I think a lot of students will just end up back in their dorm rooms instead.
Yeah, you're right. The dorms might still be cooled, but they're often noisy and distracting.
Precisely. I know I won't want to study there if the library is uncomfortably warm. It's just not going to be a good environment for concentrating.
So, in the end, it sounds like the students won't really have a good place to study anymore.
That's exactly my concern. I'm not sure the university has thought this through very well.
The woman expresses her opinion about the proposal described in the letter. Briefly summarize the proposal. Then state her opinion about the proposal and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion.
You will now read a short passage and then listen to a lecture on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about the passage. After you hear the question, you have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. You have 45 seconds to read the passage below. You may begin reading now.
Now listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
One real-life example that illustrates the concept of chaining behavior is the training of service dogs. To teach a dog to perform a complex task, like retrieving a specific object, trainers break down the process into smaller, more manageable steps. First, they teach the dog to approach the object. Then, they train the dog to pick up the object. Finally, they teach the dog to bring the object back to the handler. By chaining these individual behaviors together, the trainers can eventually teach the dog to complete the entire task of retrieving a specific object on command. This step-by-step approach allows the dog to master each component of the task, and then combine them into a seamless chain of behaviors. The chaining process ensures that the dog can consistently and reliably perform the desired behavior, which is essential for the dog's ability to provide a
Explain how the example from the professor's lecture illustrates the concept of chaining behavior.
You will now listen to part of a lecture. You will then be asked a question about it. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak.
Listen to part of a lecture in a food science class. In this lecture, I'll be discussing 2 effective ways to prevent food spoilage. One of the primary methods is refrigeration. Refrigeration works by slowing down the growth of microorganisms, such as bacteria and mold, that can cause food to spoil. By lowering the temperature, we create an environment that is less favorable for these microbes to thrive. For example, when we store perishable foods like meat, dairy, and produce in the refrigerator, the cool temperature helps to extend their shelf life by inhibiting the growth of spoilage-causing organisms. This is an effective strategy because it directly targets the root cause of food spoilage, the proliferation of microbes. Another way to prevent food spoilage is through the use of food preservatives. Preservatives are chemical additives that are incorporated into food products to inhibit the growth of microorganisms and slow down the process of deterioration. For instance, many canned and packaged foods contain preservatives like sodium benzoate or potassium sorbate, which work by disrupting the metabolic processes of microbes and preventing them from multiplying. This approach is effective because it
Using the examples of refrigeration and food preservatives from the lecture, explain 2 ways that food spoilage can be prevented.